after the mayhem from this weekend, 4 top 10 teams losing, who is on the stock up list for this week?
All right. So I had a couple, and I had to narrow it down. I feel good about this trio, though. We'll start with Diego Pavia, actually, Vanderbilt quarterback, one of my favorite player in college football. I get it.
Wow.
It was only yes. I just like the Baker Mayfield, the Johnny Manziel type. I like that, the confidence. He went on podcast saying they're going to win the national championship. He's the best quarterback. He lays his body out on the line, and you live and die by it. If he gets hurt, you
Yep.
left it all on the line. It is what it is. But I just love him. He's just a menace. And they played Utah State, but he had 6 touchdowns this week, and they're 5-0 now on the season. And Vegas had them at 4.5 wins to start the year. So
Wow.
they have it's just always been, is Vanderbilt for real? Like they've beat a couple of good teams last year, but now I think hey they're trending in the right direction. They're not a great team like talent wise, but they're playing together like fast, physical, tough. I love just how they play. And then Utah State. Honestly, okay, Utah State, like they're gonna be a 6-win team that gets into a bowl game, and like that's a brutal bowl matchup if you're like NC State. Like they're going to be a tough team. They're a fun team. Bryson Barnes is a good quarterback, and they've put up 35 points on Vandy and 22 points on Texas A&M. Those are the only 2 losses. They put up more points than Auburn did at Texas A&M this week. And anyways,
Wow.
Diego Pavia, he's been going off. He's one of the poster boys for Bowman University this year and the new set that'll be dropping. So I'm a big fan of Pavia. I hope his prices go up just because he's a fun player to watch. They got a big one that we'll talk about with Bama, and I hope that they can pull it off again this week. So that's number one. Number two, Jeremiah Love. We're back on track with Notre Dame here. And week one is also crazy because there were also so many games. Like, I think if you line Alabama and Florida State up again, I think that's a vastly different result. Like Baylor, Auburn, line those two up again. It's just week one is just so difficult to evaluate and prepare and do all that. Jeremiah Love, even dating back to last year, was he hurt? He's only getting 4 carries in the national championship game. Didn't get many carries versus Miami. Now it looks like he's back. He's had 8 touchdowns, I think, in the last 2 weeks. Shadarian Price is their backup, and he's scoring just as much. CJ Carr looks great. So Jeremiah Love, I think, is back on the running back one track that he was kind of all offseason. I went very hard on Jeremiah Love autos this offseason.
Yeah.
I feel like I looked at Ashton Genty prices at like 120, and he was like by far RB1. Of course, like a historic season, but I just felt like Notre Dame, with him being potential RB1 for 2026,
Yep. Oh yeah.
his auto was like $30 or $40. So
Yep.
I just felt like if you're buying Genty at 120, I like the room there. I think they're up to like $80-ish there on the base autos. So Jeremiah Love back, Notre Dame clicking. I
Yep.
like that. Last one, the biggest game of the week, Dante Moore, and he did it. He beat Penn State. It was a massive game in overtime. And what's crazy is, Ryan, like Friday, Saturday, I was getting offers all morning, all night on Dante Moore before the game.
Yep.
And I was like, what is going on?
Yep.
I tweeted about it, and someone was like, oh, McShay was just on, I think, Bill Simmons' podcast, and he said he's quarterback one in the draft. He's the best quarterback in the draft, and it makes sense, I guess, seeing that quick spike. And then his prices started to take off again after the game. So now I think the front runner for the Heisman, Oregon in the driver's seat until they match up against Ohio State at some point, and
Yep.
they look like they are the truth. So big win for Dante Moore and the Ducks, and excited to see what they do.
I love this list. I mean, I was eager to talk about this because I didn't know who you were going to choose for the list, but this is a great list. I love the comparisons to Manziel and Mayfield with Pavia. Dude just seems like a guy you want on your team, leading your guys to battle. He's a lot of fun to watch. Game day this weekend, Bama, Vandy. Crazy to think that we sit here in 2025 and Vandy is a part of game day. Like Alabama Vandy's the game day matchup of the week. That's it's kind of crazy. I mean, especially when you look back at the season. You look at the start of the season and you see Texas and Florida playing this weekend, and you're like, that seems like a lock for game day. You're like, you know what? Didn't work out that way. Vandy and Alabama is this week's game day. So crazy to see. It's going to be a good game. Like, I watched some of the Georgia Bama game periodically. Obviously, I was more invested in the Penn State Oregon game. Um, but I watched a little bit of that. Ty Simpson looked good. So excited to see how that game unfolds this weekend. So I love Pavia. The other piece you mentioned in that is Bowman Chrome. Like, he doesn't have a lot of stuff right now. So there are a couple options to get his cards, but this is not a guy like a Kate Klubnik or Nussmeier, Arch Manning, where, the options to get their cards are a little bit more plentiful. So a little bit less supply on him. Then Jeremiah Love picked up a Bowman Chrome PSA 10 base auto this weekend. I think those do somewhere around the $180 to $200 mark these days. He is the best running back in the country. I will fight for that. I think he's, like you said, he's going to be running back one in the class. He's the real deal. He's really, really good. I was very high on Jeremiah Love. I think before the season when you and I spoke, he's the real deal. Notre Dame stuff sells incredibly well to begin with. He's the real deal. Obviously not the start of the season, Notre Dame's looking for, losing too early. But he's good. They're going to play in a lot of TV games. He's going to get a lot of screen time. He's the real deal. I'm very optimistic about Jeremiah Love's future. And then Dante Moore. Watched 95% of the Penn State game. He's good. He is really good. We had talked about this, you and I don't know if this was either content we recorded or some of our weekly phone calls, but we had talked during last season when Oregon was in some of those press conferences. I think it was for the Rose Bowl when Ohio State smacked, just to be clear, smacked Oregon in the Rose Bowl. There was a lot of people talking about Dante Moore. They're like, this kid's the real deal. This kid's smooth. And I started picking up some stuff. I'm like, if the whole team is talking about Dante Moore when Dylan Gabriel's leading them to a Rose Bowl, I don't think they had lost at that point. They'd beat Penn State in the Big Ten title. They'd beat Ohio State. They're the number one team in the country. And they're like, hey, this Dante Moore kid is good. So I was like, okay, let me get some Dante Moore stuff. He was at UCLA. We had talked about him before. His stuff, we've got Card Ladder up. Ryan, do me a favor. Search highest sold. So it's not up there yet. I believe I'll have to double check, but I believe we have officially crossed by a landslide the most expensive Dante Moore sale ever this weekend. Sold on our eBay page. We had the National Super Auto. I was buying his stuff at the National. Picked up the Super Auto. It sold this weekend. I still could be waiting on payment. We'll see. It shows up on eBay sold listings. So I'll have to triple check. I'm 99% positive it has been paid for. But like you, we were getting offers the morning of the game. We had a bunch of people reach out about the Super Auto in his Oregon uniform, his first Super Auto in an Oregon uniform. We have a couple of Sapphire Autos and some other bigger stuff in his college uniform, in his, UCLA uniform. But his stuff has been trending up. And then to go on the big stage and to beat Penn State in Happy Valley, in the whiteout, on the road. Man, what a game, what a win. And like you said, I think it's very fair. The Heisman voting was happening right now. He's probably 1A right now for the Heisman Trophy. This kind of buzz early. Oregon is clearly a really good team. Going to be a lot of buzz. I think you're going to really... I don't think this will be the first... I don't think this will be the only time we see Dante Moore on Stock Watch the rest of the year. I would expect you'll see him return, especially if he's in Bowman Chrome U. I can't imagine if he's in Bowman Chrome U here in a few weeks, whenever that comes out, that there's not a lot more Dante Moore talk as the season progresses.
Yeah, for sure. And the nice thing about him being in the newest set, even though it's not a first, like the Oregon collectors are going to go so crazy for that that's got some insane value. And people, again, kind of like your Will Howard situation last year, like not only does he go to a huge fan base with Ohio State,
Yep.
but then just remembering him as an Ohio State Buckeye with a national championship, like that would help the market tremendously with a non-first auto. So
Yep.
yeah, Dante Moore, man, he's the truth. I didn't believe in him. I didn't like him at UCLA. It was a bad team, but I didn't like him. And then I also didn't like, personally, going to Oregon to just sit. I applaud him for being patient and like, hey, I'm going to go learn the system, go learn behind Dylan, trusting the staff not to out-recruit him in that process. Because for a moment, Quinn Ewers was like, oh, is he going to hit the portal? There's a Big Ten team that's paying up. So I was like, is he going to go? Then he was in a battle with Austin Novostad, their backup quarterback, and I was like, But all that chatter in January was real, where it was like, yo, he's the truth. Like, just watch, he's gonna be there, and he's doing it. So,
Yep.
hats off to Dante Moore.
All right, before we get into some of the recaps from this past weekend and we talk a little bit more about these games, give me the other side of this list. Give me the stock down for this week.
Okay, first one, Jackson Arnold.
Mm.
I have never been a Jackson Arnold guy. When he came out in 2023, I was like, this guy's the most overhyped, priced, over. Just I was over. I didn't like it. Didn't like it.
Real
Gets
quick,
benched at
just random
yeah.
thought on that topic, because I think we might actually agree on this. Is it fair to say Jackson Arnold? I would love to really think about this. Is Jackson Arnold the most overpriced person on day one of Bowman Chrome release ever? Like
Ooh.
overpriced versus overhyped. Like somebody that came out
Yeah.
of the gate, you're like, this makes no sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair because, again, as much as I don't like Nico, like they were in the playoff conversation, like they were 11-0 or 11-1 at that point when the product released. So,
Yep.
like they were going in the playoff conversation, but Jackson Arnold never played a snap. And I was like, all right, is he the guy after Dylan Gabriel and, all of that. So, yeah, just he was up there with Shadur, and I never understood why. Plays against Arizona, of all teams, actually. I think he had like 4 turnovers, so that was great. And then transfers to Auburn, and I was still out. And then they bring in the number 4 portal class in the country. They have all these weapons for him. They retool the offensive line. Defense looks good, and I'm like, all right, fine. A week before the season, 2 weeks, I'm like, fine, just in case, I'm going to buy some Auburn. I'm going to buy this Kool-Aid. And they beat Baylor, which, again, if you line those two teams up, like, I think Baylor would love to have that back, and Auburn's like, man, we got to get back to that spot. So they lose to Texas A&M, 10 points. I get it, A&M's a tough defense, but just Jackson Arnold just trending down. I don't even know if, like, I don't know. Do you hit the portal? Like, I think you should go to West Virginia or something and just try to get out of another fresh start for this kid, drop down a level. But
Yikes.
Jackson Arnold, I'm just like, man, I'm over it. I'm over this saga. And his Bowman First autos hit like $20 at one point this offseason. And that's when I was like, fine, I'll go back in. And now I don't know if there's like another price point that would be like, all right, unless he goes to like a West Virginia or like a Tulane or something in the portal and gets another fresh start. I'm kind of out on
His stuff's
Jackson
definitely down. A Fuchsia Auto SGC 10 to 150 from 24 did $15. You have a PSA 10 Kahuna Auto did $60. A Bowman's Best Relic Jersey Auto did $14.50. These are all according to Card Ladder. You got a couple outlier sales, like a big Kahuna Auto from last year did 55 raw. But like Gunslinger Auto from 24 best to 100 just did 550. So it's definitely safe to say Jackson Arnold has fallen an extreme amount, 4 to 5 times from probably where it was.
Yeah. And like you're almost at a point where like another alternative strategy play would be like backup quarterbacks in this situation. They've got Deuce Knight, this high 4-star, borderline 5-star guy, and they think the world of him. I think he's like 6'5", 230, huge kid. I think he's a lefty as well. And it's like, all right, like if the groans and the boos get louder and Hugh Freeze has to save his job, does he throw in this Deuce Knight kid?
Time to see what he's made of.
Yeah, so, Jackson Arnold, down. Next one, Garrett Nussmeier, losing to Ole Miss. This is a guy I've been saying, hey, quarterback 1. Why, you ask? Because last year in November, he was sputtering at the end of the season, but there was still a conversation of, like, if this guy declares, he could still go QB1, and that was before, like, Ward really took his big jump. Drew Allar had the playoff push.
Yep.
So it was like, I just put that in the memory bank, and then when he stayed, I was like, all right, I think he's going to have this hype coming back. So he had this hype all season. LSU in the championship conversation. They beat Clemson, which at the time was like, wow, that's a statement win in Death Valley. I think they struggle against a group of 5 team, I forget. Florida, they have 5 turnovers, only produced 7 points on offense. 7 of their 20 points was a pick 6. So a little questionable on offense, and then they go, doesn't look right when he's making his throws versus Ole Miss. There's a lot of questions now in press conferences. He says, I'm not going to comment on my health. And Brian Kelly is like, he's healthy. I don't know what you guys are talking about, but you can see when he's throwing, it's like, this is not looking good. It's almost like Arch week 1. It's not good. So, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there, but the offense at LSU might be fraudulent and they're on watch to continue to go down if they don't figure this out. I'm not particularly high on Ole Miss, to be honest, just from a talent perspective compared to last year's team.
Yep.
But looking at their schedule, they might also run it too. So, Garrett Nussmeier.
All right. Number 3.
Okay. Number 3. Just the stigma and just everything. Drew Allar can't win the big game. James Franklin can't win the big game. He stinks as a quarterback. Like this. Granted, he didn't throw the pick until. Honestly, throwing a pick to end the game is probably the worst way that he could have, just for his reputation.
For sure.
And I feel like the Drew Aller market, you were already either in or out to begin with, and now it's like the Drew Aller, wants to buy his cards is going to be dwindling fast, just because of the Penn State's legacy. That is, they cannot win a big game right now, and he ends the game with a pick, and that's just who Penn State is.
Yeah, I'm so torn about Drew Aller just because I have so much of him, because I a lot like Klubnik, a lot like, honestly, Nussmeier. I think those guys are going to get a lot of talk when the draft comes around. Aller is just, he's built like an NFL quarterback. Whether he makes good decisions, good reads, and can throw the ball incredibly well is a whole different story. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't think Drew Aller stuff will sell by the national, because or by the draft, because I think it's going to. But yeah, that's obviously the highlight for me as a Buckeye fan. I realize we play Penn State in Columbus around Halloween weekend. But what a letdown if you're a Penn State fan. What a letdown. Drew Aller's 0-6 against top 6 teams. The last, 4 or 5? Major whiteouts against ranked teams. You don't win any of them. I saw something on Twitter the other day that said, what if Ohio State never lost to Penn State in 2016? What would that do to James Franklin's resume? Again, I look at this guy and I'm like, what has this guy done? What has this guy done for Penn State? What has James Franklin done? He had a good roster in the spring. Congrats. He won 2 playoff games last year. That's probably his greatest accomplishment. He's won in 10 against top 5 or top 10 teams. The record is unbelievably bad. He has not accomplished anything at Penn State. I'm like, what do you look at and be like, this guy's done something? He wins games he's supposed to. We talked about. You and I talked about this before. And you said it, and it's the truest thing ever. Wins games he's supposed to.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. There is no signature win aside from, I guess the college football playoff, yes. Although people will say, oh, it was SMU. Fair point, right? Like, it wasn't like a true blue blood, and all of that. But I like James Franklin. I feel bad for the guy, but yeah, it is tough to defend all of that. I just say, hey, he's only just never, well, not only, but it's always Michigan, Ohio State. If you look back at all his losses, and bowl game with Ole Miss,
and ranked teams.
Yeah, he just cannot beat Ohio State, Michigan, and now Oregon is in the mix on the annual schedule there. I guess you're looking at double-digit win seasons, and you're not going to win the big game, and that's what it is. That's James Franklin. That's the program. No championships.
4-21 against top 10 teams. 4-21. You just the whiteout. I would love to go. I would tell you it's just by you hear Herb Street talk about it. You hear a lot of big announcers talk about it as the toughest place to play in college football. I wouldn't want to go on the road. I don't shout out to Big Noon Kickoff. It's the only time I'm really going to argue for Big Noon Kickoff, because playing a night game in Happy Valley sounds awful. Awful. I remember the 2016 block kick. Awful. I wouldn't want to go there. So to lose so many of them, I'm like, man, again, it's this hard point now, because I think the difference between a Klubnik and an Aller, who I both think are going to be, propped up. I think there'll be some demand for those guys come, the draft. I think Aller is in a better position than a Cade Klubnik. That team is much better. The defense is incredible. Danny Dennis Sutton, that dude, that dude's awesome. He's the real deal. Like I watched that game. That dude's an animal. So like I think Penn State's going to be in the mix. I would sit here and tell you they're going to go to the CFP. They could beat Ohio State. I don't think they will. At least if they play tomorrow, I would definitely pick Ohio State. Obviously, I realize I'm biased, but they're going to be in the mix. Allar's going to have a couple big games. So we'll see, but I feel more optimistic that Allar has a better rest of the year than Klubnik. So we'll see how that goes. Nussmeier's in an interesting spot. Again, the SEC's got it like Nussmeier's going to play some more tough games here soon. He's going to have to win some of these to really keep his prices from continuously going down. It's kind of like our conversation around like Lagway and Arch, which we'll get into that in a second. But like if they just keep losing, it's hard to see some optimism and some like uptick in their prices. If it's just like, I mean, look at the Florida schedule. If Lagway just keeps losing, where do you look at it and say opportunity to not go down, opportunity to go the other way? So it's just hard to picture, some of these guys having a moment to actually go up without getting one of these signature wins. So we'll see. I'm intrigued. Jackson Arnold does nothing for me. It's kind of like Lagway. It almost seems like you're almost waiting till the offseason to have an opportunity to really move them. I think Texas is going to beat Florida this weekend. I think, there's a good chance Florida moves on from their coach, and it's, the offseason, it's early 2026 before Lagway has much of a market when they're talking about him as, this big physical quarterback that could be QB1 in 2020, the 2027 NFL draft, because I'm not sure there's a lot of opportunity this year. So Jackson Arnold's just a guy I look at as that, like you said, transfer or something else, because I don't see a lot of opportunity for Jackson Arnold to have much uptick here in, the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that as well, and I'm curious to see Texas, Florida this weekend. I think Texas will take it pretty handily. It is in Florida as well, so it's like, man, like this is your spot to really bounce back, Florida and Billy Napier, and do all that. If they do decide to move on, again, those voices are getting much louder as well, just like with James Franklin
Yeah.
with Billy Napier. So it's like, and then I mean, the only thing with Lagway is, if they do go in another direction with the head coach, and does he hit the portal? Like he would be the most desirable quarterback to hit the portal, and I think there's a line out the
Ever?
door to try. I'm trying to. Perhaps I would say. I mean, I think like typically we haven't like the only time like those highly ranked guys have transferred is like if it's a DJU situation where it's like like not really not really up to that level. So it could be where it's like, man, like you're betting on the youth, the tools, and just the upside with Lagway and what he can do, and then you go to a big time program that's going to spend in the portal and
Yep.
see what they can do.